the great plan, the lost word.
We, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do.
It exists. It is being brought about. It is working its effect upon us now, today, as I speak.
Cooper said it from the beginning. There's always been a plan, a blueprint hidden in plain sight. He said it has been unfolding for centuries, and most of us never notice. But look around. Look at the speed of change today. Does it feel random? Or does it feel like someone is turning the pages of a script?
I'm telling you this is what's going to happen because I've talked to them face to face, and they don't even hide the fact. That person will wear the throne of the world. Behind that person will be a council of what they call wise men who will really be the rulers. This poor guy is just going to be the fool they stick out there to take the brunt of the public wrath whenever it's necessary. Then you can knock him off if you want to. They just put somebody else up there.
Now, this is where the real material begins. Cooper spent years digging where most people never look, and what he found might change how you see everything.
Truth is what I'm all about. And believe me, sometimes I get caught in the deception just like everybody else, but it's not as easy to catch me in the deception as it is to catch most of you. Because I've been caught too many times, and I learn from my mistakes. And I spend 99% of my time searching out the truth where none of you have ever looked. Some of you may have looked in some of the areas and some of the things that I've looked in, but I can guarantee you there's nobody in this room who has looked where I've looked as long as I have looked, as diligently as I have done it.
Cooper admitted he'd been wrong before. He said the truth is buried under layers of lies. But here's what made him different. He didn't just talk, he dug. He spent years in places most of us never step foot in. According to researchers who followed his work, Cooper's method was simple. Follow the paper trail. If a document exists, someone had to file it. If a secret society exists, someone had to write about it. So the real question isn't whether he was right about everything. It's this. If he could uncover this kind of information decades ago, what could you find today?
Now, what I'm going to try to do today is sort of give you some of what I've learned, and you can take it for whatever you think it's worth. I hope that you will take it out of here and use it to search for your own truth. Truth is not always cut and dried. It's not always black and white. You can't get into the concept that, hey, this is right and that is wrong and there is no in-between, because that's not true. There are all kinds of in-between all the time. And truth is elusive, folks. I have to tell you this. It's elusive at best, and it's hard to find. And the moment you think you know it all, you have lost yourself again.
The moment you think you have all the answers, you stop thinking. And according to Cooper, that's exactly what the controllers want. Today, with AI-generated content, deepfakes, and information wars, the line between truth and fiction is blurrier than ever. Maybe that's not an accident.
The moment that you say, I'm going to listen to him, and anybody that says anything different to him is wrong, you've just totally destroyed yourself. Any opposing viewpoint, anything that opposes the status quo, if you won't listen to it, you're already brainwashed. You've closed your mind, and you are at the mercy of whatever manipulation they want to throw your way, because you've already determined that they're telling you the truth no matter what. You don't investigate. You have accepted blindly. That's the most dangerous thing that can happen to anyone.
Cooper warned against blind loyalty. To him, to any leader, to any news source, he said the most dangerous person is the one who stops questioning. Think about that. When was the last time you truly listened to someone you disagreed with? Not to argue, but to understand. Most of us don't. We've already decided who's right and who's wrong. And once you stop listening to opposing views, you stop thinking. According to Cooper, that's exactly how control works. Not by force, but by making you so certain of your own truth that you close the door on everything else.
Now I'm going to talk about this country and what it's all about. Some of you are going to disagree with me. And during this talk today, I'm going to make some of you angry. And I want you to understand this. If what I'm telling you up here is not true, it's not going to bother you. On my radio show, I use the term sheeple a lot. I can always tell when I hit the targets, boy, I get the letters. How dare you call me a sheeple? That person wouldn't have wrote that letter if that person wasn't a sheeple. Because they would have known I wasn't talking about them, right? Only the person that the arrow hits gets angry. So the reason I'm telling you this, if you find what I'm talking about disturbing, I'm hitting you with some truth that is bothering you, that's really bothering you, and you need to look at it really closely, because it wouldn't be bothering you if it wasn't true.
A blunt way to put it. But research shows that people often react most strongly when a truth hits close to home. Cooper's point was simple. If you're offended, ask yourself why. Not to defend your ego, but to find what you might be avoiding. Today, social media outrage is a currency, but how much of it is manufactured to keep us fighting each other instead of looking up?
There are a lot of people who are extremely critical of my radio broadcast because they say I spend too much time on symbology and history and the mystery religions and all of these things that they write me letters and say, I don't care about that. It doesn't mean anything. Why don't you get into some nitty-gritty? Well, they don't understand that is the nitty-gritty. He who does not study and understand history is doomed to repeat it. And the same play has been being performed throughout the history of the world by what we call the builders, the controllers, the puppet masters, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to start right at the beginning and tell you exactly who they are and how to identify them, okay? Because there really are puppet masters, there really are controllers, there really are builders, but they're not engaged in building buildings, they're engaged in building people. They're building what they call the perfect race. But because the knowledge, the truth has been withheld from the people, and that's how they manipulate people, is by withholding the truth and controlling them with the lies.
History repeats itself. Not by accident, but by design. That's what Cooper kept saying. And he didn't just say it, he showed it. He spent years tracing the same symbols, the same rituals, the same power structures across centuries. From ancient mystery schools to modern government seals. From the Roman Empire to Washington, D.C. Why? Because if you understand the pattern, you can predict the behavior. And if you can predict it, you're no longer a victim of it. You can see the strings. Cooper's point wasn't to scare you. It was to arm you. He believed that once you learn to recognize the architecture of control, it loses its power over you. You stop being manipulated because you start paying attention.
You have to understand the agenda, you have to understand who's bringing it about and why before you can see the manipulations and how people are being used and manipulated to bring it about. How many of you believe that this is a Christian government? How many of you believe that it was founded as a Christian government? I hate to tell you this, but you're wrong. This country was built by Christians because that's the majority of the people who originally came here. And a lot of the things that they believed in is reflected in our laws and in our traditions and in our government. But the government was never meant to be Christian. Many of them were members of the secret societies. How many of you believe Thomas Jefferson was a Christian? I'm not afraid. I believed it until I read the truth about Thomas Jefferson and studied his life. Thomas Jefferson hated Christianity. Thomas Jefferson tore up the Bible. Thomas Jefferson wrote his own Bible because he said the God of the universe could not possibly be that terrible God represented in the King James Version of the Bible. Don't be afraid to raise your hand in here, folks. Nothing that I'm going to say is intended as a personal slant or insult or attack upon anybody in here. But I need your cooperation in order for us all to learn.
Thomas Jefferson took a razor to the New Testament. He cut out every miracle, every supernatural event, every claim of divinity. He pasted together his own version of the Bible, one he could believe in as a man of reason. That's not a rumor. That's a book you can still see today at the Smithsonian. So here's the question Cooper kept asking. If one of the main authors of the Declaration of Independence wasn't a Christian, why were we taught that America was founded as a Christian nation?
So was Benjamin Franklin. How many of you knew that Benjamin Franklin was the master of the Masonic Lodge in Philadelphia? How many of you knew that he was the master of the Lodge of Nine Muses in France? Have you ever studied the Lodge of Nine Muses? Boy, you better. See, these are things you don't know because you were taught something different, and it makes you uncomfortable to hear what I'm telling you, only for the reason that you've been taught something else and you've been reared with it and you've accepted it. It's hard to let go of something that you have learned and accepted that is not true. You don't want to let go of it because then you have to give up your comfort zone. How many of you know that George Washington was a Freemason? How many of you know if you're a Freemason, you cannot possibly in your wildest dreams be a Christian? It's absolutely impossible. And I can show it to you in their own words. And you don't even know the slightest, teeniest bit about his real involvement in the secret societies. He founded a military order, a secret order of his military officers, the generals and senior officers of the Revolution, also known as the Knights of the Golden Circle. You see, all of this has happened over and over and over and over and over again throughout the history of the human race. These people know how to lead us wherever they want us to go because they study history and we don't.
George Washington, Benjamin Franklin. Many of the men we revere as founders were deeply involved in secret societies. According to Masonic records, this is well documented. But how many history classes mention it? Cooper's point wasn't to attack them. It was to show that the game has been played for centuries. And if we don't study the rules, we'll keep losing.
If our founding fathers were deists and they were members of the secret societies, and some of them were masquerading as Christians, and some of them were just flat weren't Christians, weren't masquerading at all, why did they create this country? They came here to create a new world, not a country. How many of you really read what they wrote? They didn't come here to create a country. They came here to create a new world. What else did they call it? The Grand Experiment, the Great Experiment. Remember reading those words? And just read right over them, didn't really understand what it meant. They came from a world that was oppressive, ruled by kings and queens and popes and prelates and bishops and lords and barons. So they did something that was unheard of, never been done in the history of the world. They set the cattle free. They said, you're not really a serf. You're not really a slave. You're not really as dumb as they say you are. You're not really a bunch of cattle. Now you're free men. You got brains. We're even going to write this contract to guarantee your freedom. But we know you won't keep it because you're human. And they wrote about that, didn't they? Didn't they tell us all the ways that we would give it up? Didn't they write about it? Didn't they warn us over and over and over and over again? In all of their writings, they knew we would give it up because we're human. And they were geniuses who understood human nature probably better than any single group of men that's ever lived throughout the history of the world.
The founders didn't just create a country. They launched an experiment. They knew human nature. They knew that power always tried to expand. They knew that freedom is hard work, and most people eventually choose comfort over vigilance. That's why they wrote the warnings in plain English, not for themselves, but for us.
What did Ben Franklin say when he came out of the Constitutional Convention after everything was signed, sealed, and delivered? Somebody said, "Hey, Ben, what have ye wrought?" See, a republic, if you can keep it. He knew. They all knew. What was it really about? Why did they give it to us if they knew we would give it up? And they did know. Make no mistake about that. They knew. What do you think the fight over federalism was all about? They wanted to make sure that at some future point, the great central government would seize control.
A republic, if you can keep it. Those are the actual words of Benjamin Franklin. According to historians, he understood that the greatest threat to liberty would come not from kings, but from within, from a central government growing too powerful. Today, the debate over federal versus state power is as heated as ever. Cooper believed the founders designed the system to be fragile on purpose, so we would have to fight to keep it.
And by the way, if you want confirmation of what I said about the founding fathers, if you really believe that they were Christian, go look at the city that they laid out from the air. Look at the symbolism that they built into it. All deist, all Masonic, all Jacobin. It's another word for Jacobin, illuminist. Go into the Capitol building, stand right in the center of the rotunda and look straight up at the dome where nobody ever looks. And what do you see? You see the apotheosis of George Washington, riding across the heavens in the chariot of Apollo. Who is Apollo? George Washington. He's become God now. And around the perimeter of the Capitol dome, you see all the old gods of the Roman pantheon. They're all there. Zeus, Mercury, Prometheus, all of them. What's that doing on the inside of our Capitol dome if this country is a Christian nation?
You can see it for yourself. The Capitol Rotunda, the fresco on the dome, is called the Apotheosis of Washington. George Washington ascending to heaven like a Roman god, around him figures from Greek and Roman mythology. And here's what's happening right now. The government is spending $60 million to restore that dome. They're repairing more than 1,000 cracks. They're preserving every detail. Why spend all that money on a painting that supposedly has no meaning? Meanwhile, there's a debate raging in America about Christian nationalism, the idea that this country was founded as a Christian nation. Some people are rewriting history to fit that narrative. But Cooper's question still stands. If this is a Christian nation, why is its most sacred government building decorated with pagan gods? The symbols don't lie, and they're spending millions to keep them there.
Now, there's some people you can listen to who are not gurus. God's not whispering in their ear. They don't have a crystal ball. But they are what I call the inner circle. They know what's coming. They're part of it. And when they write or they talk, you better listen to them. One of them is Henry Kissinger. Listen to Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger doesn't just get up and jaw. If he says something that's important, listen to him. Whether you like him or not doesn't make any difference. But I've discovered that most people who ever meet him really like him a lot. He's very charismatic, very polite, very gracious, very nice guy. He's also one of the biggest traitors that's ever lived. Another one that you have to read is Foreign Relations. Foreign Relations is published by the Council on Foreign Relations, and you can subscribe to their publication. Whatever they write in there usually happens about 2 years later. Whatever it is. It's almost like magic. If they're not involved in any of this, how come what they write about always happens? Almost everybody in government belongs to the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, or both. They speak in a code that they understand perfectly. The average person hasn't got the slightest idea what they're talking about. And if you don't study them and their symbology and what they believe in and what their agenda is, you'll never know. You could read this and never know what this guy's saying. Oh, that sounds nice. That's what most people say. Oh, that sounds nice. Doesn't it sound nice in a way? But if you really understand it, it's not nice at all. What they're saying is, screw you, we're going to enslave you. We're going to engineer how you live, how you think, how you work, everything.
You've probably heard of the World Economic Forum. Their 2030 scenarios are all over the news, predictions about how technology and geopolitics will reshape the global economy. But here's what they don't tell you. The WEF is just the face, the visible tip. Beneath it are older, more powerful, far more secretive organizations. The Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. These aren't theories, they're real. Their memberships are published, and year after year, what they propose quietly becomes policy. The 2030 Agenda, the Great Reset, the reshaping of global governance. It's not random, it's a blueprint. There's a pattern here, a hierarchy. The WEF sets the narrative, but the CFR and the Trilateral Commission, they set the strategy. They've been planning decades ahead, while most of us have been watching sports and scrolling through our phones. Cooper pointed this out 30 years ago. He said they speak in code, and if you don't study them, you'll never understand what's really happening.
Here's also what he says on page 9. Now, if you don't understand the Ordo ab Chao technique, order out of chaos. By the way, that's the motto of the 32nd degree of Freemasonry. Ordo ab Chao. We'll just devolve everything into a state of chaos, and out of that, we will bring order to the world the way we want it. And everybody will get down on their knees and thank us for restoring order and security. to their lives. And they will be willing to give up anything to us for that favor. Quote, in the United States today, as in many other countries, the collection of second and third waves creates social tensions, dangerous conflicts, and strange new political wave fronts that cut across the usual divisions of class, race, sex, or party. All the old polarizations and coalitions break up, end quote. Toffler even admits that there's a plan. On page 10 of his book, quote, life may indeed be absurd in some large cosmic sense, but this hardly proves that there is no pattern in today's events. In fact, there is a distinct, hidden order that becomes detectable as soon as we learn to distinguish third wave changes from those associated with the diminishing second wave, end quote. There's always been a plan. They call it the great work, the great plan, the lost word. There's all kinds of words for it. It exists. It is being brought about.
Order out of chaos. It's the motto of the 32nd degree of Freemasonry. But according to Cooper, it's also the strategy of global power. Create crisis, then offer solution. Today, look at the headlines. Pandemic, war, inflation, social division. Each crisis is followed by calls for more central control, more surveillance, more power to the same institutions. Cooper wasn't saying the crises are fake. He was asking who benefits from the chaos and who gets to define the new order.
Now, I'm going to just give you a little demonstration of the degree of control that is already in effect in this country concerning communications. Now, if you're smart, you know that if you turn the dial on your radio and on your TV set and on every news story, it has the same slant in the same words, and it's the same stories. You know that the news and the media are controlled. If you don't, you're not playing with a full deck of cards. Okay? It is absolutely absurd to believe that all these different networks, news stations, newspapers, and radio stations are all owned by different people, yet they all carry the exact same stories every day, worded in the exact same way, with the same agenda and the same slant. You see, if they were all separate and independent, that could never happen in a million years, because no two people ever attach the same importance to the same event or the same slant on the same story unless they're handed it.
Try it yourself. Turn on CNN, then Fox, then MSNBC. Different hosts, different tones, but the stories often identical. The framing often identical.
Some short-term pain for American consumers.
According to media ownership records, most major outlets are now owned by just a few corporations. Cooper said this decades ago. Today, it's even more concentrated. Independent journalism still exists, but it's harder to find, and it doesn't pay as well. So the question is, who decides what you see?
If you don't understand that freedom and liberty must be creator endowed, then you are opening the door for somebody to take it away from you, because they don't have to answer to a creator. You understand? So even if you don't believe in God, you better start. If you want to stay free. If you want to stay free. If you don't care about freedom, you don't have to believe in God. You see, there must be something that human beings answer to protect us from ourselves. Because the minute we become God, how many of you in here want me to be God? I don't want me to be God either. Because I know who I am. I know the temptations that I'm subject to. I have seen what power can do to people, and I might fall prey to that same corruption that would allow me to use that power wrongly.
Cooper wasn't preaching. He was making a political point. If rights come from government, government can take them away. If rights come from something higher, nature, a creator, or whatever you believe, then no government has the authority to revoke them. According to the Declaration of Independence, that was the founders' stated view. Today, many argue that rights are granted by the state. Which version do you think leads to more freedom?
We're in this situation because all of us, me included, we're dummies for most of our lives. And unless we change that, we are never going to turn anything around. And that is the cold, hard truth, whether we like it or not. And we all, at some point in our life, have to go in the bathroom, confront our own self in the mirror and say, Bill Cooper, you've been a fool for most of your life. What is the matter with you? You've got to stop it right now. You got to stop being stupid.
A humble ending from a man who risked everything to speak. Cooper's final message wasn't about them. It was about us. According to him, the first step to waking up is admitting we've been asleep. Not out of shame, but out of honesty. So here's the question. What will you do differently after hearing this? If nothing changes, then nothing changes. And as Cooper said, we've been fools long enough.